But my name is Monique Jones. Nice to meet you all. Thank you all for coming. I am the current recruitment manager for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, excuse me. So that's CDCR for the folks that know our acronyms. We are the largest state department. So we have roughly 65,000 employees. There are 184 to 186 different state departments statewide. So the good news for you is outside of CDCR, which has pretty much the gamut on the different types of careers that you can have with the state has an amazing plethora of opportunities, both here in the Placer County area, El Dorado County, Sacramento County, pretty much anywhere you'd like to go if you want to be closer to kids in college, if you want to start. Was just doing an event in San Diego last week, and one of the folks, he moved from Sacramento to San Diego last year. So there are great opportunities once you do get a state job for lateral movement within the same position that you hold, or you can promote, move around. So that's one of the top things for me, top draws with the state. We have a lot of other things, but one of the top draws with the state is the diverse careers that you can hold, the upward mobility that you can have. The state is huge on providing training and upward mobility so that you can grow in your career. It was essentially created for that purpose, as well as the opportunities just for starting a new career, for extending an existing career, for fitting in. So I'm going to find where to share my screen so I can start with. And I will put my information in the chat, so I apologize for not having my PowerPoint so that I can have it all there. There we go. And so I'm going to have CalCareers going, which is the dashboard that we normally have to use. So this CalCareers is our dashboard that we normally use. All state departments have to use it. So it's kind of the end all for everything. So you may find our jobs on LinkedIn, on Circa, on other platforms. For the most part, they should link you back to a job control on this platform. If you'd like to find the platform is jobs.ca.gov. So that is www.jobs.ca.gov. Basically anything you want to know about applying with the state, where to find the jobs. So you have advanced job searches here. You can do geographic job searches. So if you are, again, considering a move to a different county, a different part of the state, or even just want to keep it here, Placer County, El Dorado County, Sacramento County, you can go there. And then the exam assessment search. So we'll kind of start with the first order of business, which is your CalCareers account. So in order to apply for positions online, or even take exams that are held online, or even some of the exams that are not, you have to create a CalCareers account. That is kind of your one-stop shop for everything. It's very, very great to have this. You go here where there's the little person that says create account login. So you'll click on that. To get started, you don't have to put in everything. So here under create account, essentially what you need is your name. And this would be the same name that's on your driver's license or any legal documents. So no nicknames, no shortened versions of your names, whatever is your legal name. Place that in your CalCareers account. And that is because depending on the types of exams and assessments that you're taking, how we on the back end find you is by your legal name and your social security number. So assure that even if you have a nickname, that's great. You can put it in parentheses like on your applications, but just make sure that you have your legal name, whatever that may be at this time. So again, it's what's on your driver's license into this account. It's the same when you get hired with the state. If you're transitioning or anything like that, that's amazing. We just have to go with whatever's legally by the IRS and everything else. So again, on your identification cards, it's also how you would get paid in the end. So again, the state does understand, and a lot of departments will acknowledge if you have nicknames or something that you go by, dead names and so on and so forth. It's just for that legal purpose. This is kind of the same as paying your taxes, getting paid, and that. So you just need your name, social security number, a good email address. So an email address that you check often. I actually have one that I just use for jobs. When I was looking, it's something that makes it easier than when you're getting spam, right, from everything. I don't know about everybody else, but my spam has literally quadrupled in the last month and a half. I don't know what spammers are doing, but they are out there working hard trying to get me to click on Coinbase and Amazon and other Netflix, fake emails, right? So if you have something that you can look at where hopefully it won't get bogged down with the spam so you can see, that is how, if someone has a question for you about your eligibility, if they have a question about your application, or you'll get contact letters. So contact letters, which I'll show you later, once you take an exam with the state, when you are on our list and we list a job. So it's kind of a great way, I call it reverse stalking. You don't have to necessarily look for jobs every week or every day, because you can choose to receive contact letters and we will email you and say, hey, Sarah, we have this job amazing available for you in this county that you've said that you'd like to work in, check it out. So that's why a good email address and a good phone number, just in case. So again, if an HR shop wants to call you to schedule an interview, or if they have any questions, they would need to be able to reach you at any of those things, as well as a good address. So if you have a PO box, that's great. Just make sure that you're checking it on a regular basis. If you have an address or you're moving, again, just make sure potentially, you know, if you have someone, a family member, someone who has a permanent address, if you're kind of in between, and you can always change it. So once you're in your CalCareers, this is kind of your world. So once you log in and you have all of your information, you can designate which counties you'd like to work in. It is very tempting to put statewide. I would say not so much, because inevitably you will receive contact letters from Riverside County, or, you know, far eastern Imperial County, which is over by the Arizona border, or Butte, or one of the far counties, because they'll be like, oh, look at this person, they're amazing and they're qualified and they're willing to work statewide. And that wasn't exactly where you wanted to be. So I would definitely go through and just look at the counties you'd like to work in. Again, though, do remember El Dorado County, Placer County, Yolo County, even that part of San Joaquin right near Galt, and you know, all of those are kind of, to me, drivable. So whatever your commuting distance is, I'd say, you know, within an hour, hour and a half, you have quite a few counties in that area. You may, you know, if you put San Joaquin, you may get something, you know, closer to Tracy or whatnot, and that's fine. But it's just so you don't miss the opportunities that are kind of right there in a commutable distance in like that Lodi Galt area. Same in Yolo, you won't miss West Sac, which is actually in Yolo County. So a lot of folks don't realize we have 4 or 5, like Fish and Wildlife and Department of General Services, even one of CDCR's, quite a few departments that have pretty large buildings and lots of work opportunities right in Yolo County. So when they're looking for jobs in West Sac, it's not Sacramento County, it's Yolo. So same with Placer County. I always remind folks that Placer County is very close, very commutable from pretty much anywhere in the Sac Metro County area. Same with El Dorado. You don't necessarily have to take something up by Tahoe unless you'd like to, but you could get things in El Dorado Hills, Placerville, those kinds of things, which again are decently commutable. And there's quite a few departments that do have either headquarters and or career opportunities in those areas. So that's just to kind of get you started. It gets you kind of toe in the water, right? You are now in the system, having that CalCareers account, and now you're ready to kind of explore the next steps, which is, what should I apply for? How do I find it? What do I look for? So once you create your account, I'm going to have you go back to this homepage. So you're clicking on the little house to go back to the homepage. The dashboard has actually grown quite a bit, and this keyword search is amazing. So if you are, I'm going to say, let's look at that. I have some already in here. You're a teacher, right? You can literally just put teacher in the keyword search. What this does, if you click on search, it parses through all of the open positions. So that's kind of the keyword. It's all of the currently open positions with the state, which right now there's 28 open with the state that are right now. I have my search fairly, you know, open, so it's not limited to any counties or anything else. But right now, anything that mentions the word teacher in their job ad. So the beautiful thing is, it may not be a teacher, it could be something else. And that's kind of another great way to see, whereas you may come in and say, I'm a teacher, but there may be other different niche classifications. So for the state, classification is kind of like a job title, but you have some classifications that are very broad. So for instance, my classification is a staff services manager 1, but it's a very broad classification. You could be doing budgets, you could be doing IT, you could be doing project management. I am doing recruitment. So therefore, don't limit yourself on the actual job title. What you have to think of is your skills. So the job title kind of for this one just really works with the keyword search. Later, we're going to kind of take that job title out and input what types of skills you learned, because again, that may help you to qualify for other positions that you may not have thought about that were relevant. So just putting in teacher gives me 28 different types of jobs with the state. These are all different types of teachers. It looks like for the most part, it is Department of Developmental Services, Chuckawalla State Prison, Mule Creek. As you can see, these are all over. So you see where it is, the final filing date, which is the last date that you have to apply. The job salary, which is important. We are paid monthly with the state, so that's why you'll see kind of this large number. It can be a little bit of a learning curve, but it's actually great to be able to just kind of pay all your bills at the beginning of the month. This is for this specific classification, what the salary means. For the most part, almost everyone is brought in at this bottom number. There are certain circumstances that would allow for someone to start a little bit higher. But the beautiful thing again with the state is that if you finish your probation and you successfully kind of complete on an annual basis, depending on your bargaining unit, you are usually getting a 5% or more raise per year until you hit this number. So starting at 5, ending at 11, if that makes sense. So it is basically a 5% raise. And then sometimes your bargaining units will also renew contracts. They will, go in together. So we're all for the most part union represented positions. Even the supervisors, we do have a collective that does represent us, and they are there to look out for your rights in terms of benefits, pay, time off, all of those types of fun things. So over your state career, you may have general raises within certain bargaining units, and then you also just have this up to 5%, sometimes more, again, depending on the bargaining unit. I think IT is a little bit more, and there's a few others that are a little bit more, again, from their bargaining unit agreements. All of the bargaining unit agreements are also public information. I can show you that later in their presentation. So another great thing about the state, everything we do is transparent. So everything is here on this website and or connected websites to this one. So if you'd like to do a deep dive, you can easily kind of go in and see in terms of salary, all of the state employees, all of our salaries are listed by the Sacramento Bee every single year. So it's not something you can hide. Have someone looking for you money-wise, just keep that in mind. They also kind of smoosh in if folks get overtime, if they get bonuses. There are some positions like our personnel specialist that does have referral, but not referral bonuses, excuse me. They have bonuses to maintain the positions. So that is also a kind of a nice perk for the position that you do have. So again, for this keyword search, you have teachers. What you can do is now go to refine your search. So let's just say, you know what, this is too broad. I'd like to just keep it within the counties that I'd like to look for. So if you click here under refine search, and now you can refine the search by department. You can define the search by work type, location, which is the different counties, and it has all of the counties in the state of California, by your salary, type of application. The classification again is the type. So this is every single job that the state has to offer. Unless you specifically know a classification name, I probably wouldn't put that in. But for this one, for this example, we're going to say county. So we are going to come down to Placer County. I think I passed it. There we go. Where'd it go? There we go. And we're going to click on update results. So there are no jobs in Placer County right now, not for a teacher. Doesn't mean that there aren't any, but there are definitely, as of right now, open jobs. So that's the other thing to memorize, to remember too, is that you may find that it will say that there are no jobs that match your criteria. Doesn't mean that the state doesn't have them. It's just they may not be open at the moment. So don't get discouraged if you put in a keyword and you don't see a matching position. It just means that there's not an open position. So here's another way to find out if the state actually has this as a classification that you can apply to at some time. And that is going back to the homepage. And it thinks about it. Looking for exam and assessment searches. So what it is that with the state, 99.9% of our positions requires some type of an exam or an assessment. It sounds a lot more intimidating than it really is. It's not SAT level, you know, it may seem like it for some of the written exams, and that's just because we want to give you a space in order to take the exam, you know, with your head clear so that you can relax and do it, you know, feeling that you were prepared. But really what the exam is there to do is to help to quantify the job skills that you learned and how they match up with the minimum qualifications for each job. So from the back end, the state hires basically on experience. So we basically have to have a minimum level of experience that you would have to have for any position that you would take. A lot of folks do not give themselves enough grace in terms of the experience that you have, as it relates to the jobs that you can apply to. So let me think. For teachers, kind of a big one, we'll do AGPA. That's a big one that happens a lot. Sorry, I'll show you the exam search first. So I'm trying to think of a job that people don't hear about a lot. Can't think of something off the top of my head. The exam searches, I'll just show you the exam searches and then we'll kind of go back to finding out the minimum qualifications and again at the exams. So for the exam, sorry, I got ahead of myself. So for the exams, what you'd find is most are linked on job ads, which I'll show you how to find the exam bulletin for where to take it. The state in general, we are trying to move towards having most of our exams online so that you can take them in the comfort of your home. There may be some that you have to apply for. So for CDCR, for instance, we have over 300 exams that are just specific to CDCR. So for some of those, you will have to send in an application to take the exam first, have that exam sent back to you. Sometimes, usually it's via email, or it may be a paper version where you send it back and then they score it. The beauty of that is it does not stop you from applying for the job. So one of those kind of key things is that you don't have to be on a list, as it's called, which is what you get added to once you pass the exam, take the exam and pass it. You can actually still apply for a job. So let's just say you are looking at CalCareers after this presentation, you find the absolute perfect job for you, and you're just like, oh, I don't have time to take the exam, I have to work, what have you. You can still apply if the final filing date is today, and then you can apply to take the exam or take the exam tomorrow. As long as you are on a list and able for us to reach you, which means that you've passed the exam at a certain level by the time we want to hire you, then that is the way that the state works. So don't feel as though sometimes, you know, if you're kind of crunched for time that you have to hurry up and take it. You can also let the folks know there's usually a hiring contact. So I will show you that on a job control where you can say, hey, I've applied and I've taken the exam. You can show sometimes proof screenshots, especially if it's an online exam that you've taken it. And then they know that they're waiting for your results to be uploaded into your CalCareers dashboard. So I'll show you kind of where all that lives. Again, it's a great space to see the templates that you're going to be using to apply, as well as the different assessments that you've taken, what your scores are. When that expires, so most all of our assessments are usually good for a year, sometimes there's 2 and sometimes there's longer, so that you can be aware that you have to, if you've not been hired for that specific exam or assessment list, you have to retake it when it does expire every time to maintain your eligibility. Most folks are kind of great and sometimes have the bandwidth to let you know that your eligibility has expired, but there are some departments that don't have the bandwidth to let you know. So because it is in that CalCareers dashboard, then it is up to you to kind of maintain that. And I believe you can start taking it again. I want to say it's 3 to 6 months before you expire. So just kind of keep an eye on things. Once you are hired from a list, then you're pulled off that list. But again, that's because you were hired from it. And the understanding is that you would be working permanently full-time towards passing your probation, which can be anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending again on the position. There are also what's called limited term positions. Again, those are great ways to get into the state. It's not a permanent position, so you don't start with your retirement benefits and the vesting that happens for your retirement. However, it is a great way for you to kind of network. Some of them can become permanent. So that is, again, a great way if there's a learning curve, especially depending on where you're going into the state, for you to get the experience that's necessary. Some of them are kind of truly limited. Someone's on, say, maternity leave or disability or whatnot. Again, always encourage you to network and get to know the folks. Once folks, whether it's that limited term position and or a student position or something else, and we'll go into some of those a little bit later, networking is kind of key. Folks understanding your work ethic, how you work, you will find out about a lot more jobs that are coming. Our fiscal year is ending next month, so you will see a lot of positions potentially get frozen, or you're going to see a lot of hiring happening in the next month where we have to spend the money that we were given last year on hires. So every year we have to pre-say, hey, we are going to hire this many folks based on this amount of work that we have to get done. This is what our department needs, and we should spend it, because if you don't, then the Department of Finance and the governor's office wants to know why. Were you able, did the project go away? Did the specs change? Something happened? Do you need the money again? Because if we don't need it, then they will give it to someone else. So the good news is this career fair is positioned at an amazing time, because you are going to see quite a few jobs that are going to get thrown out, right? They've got to get folks at least in process to get hired before the end of June. So this is a great time to be applying with the state. I can't say that there's kind of any good time, but this is a great time, kind of unofficially, right, to apply with the state, because there are a lot of folks either that are trying to get people on board so that they can get projects done. So with the exam, I will just do AGPA. And you can type things into the keywords, and of course it won't bring that up because it's an acronym. So I'm going to type associate, actually. And I'm doing that because there are a lot of positions that start with the word associate. And just typing in that keyword will give me every single job that starts with the word associate. So let's just say you're at a career fair, you're speaking to myself or someone else who's a recruiter, and they threw out this very detailed classification title and you didn't write it down and you might only remember part of it. The good news is that you can just put in whatever the word is that you remember, whether it just be analyst, whether it be associate, governmental, whatever that is. All of the different job titles that have that in there will populate. So as you can see, there's 70 different exams, which means there's 70 different classifications that have the word associate in it for the state of California. So we are going to take this architectural associate. It is given by the Department of General Services. So all of these are kind of what I call great stalking methods. So part of it, because we have over 180 different state departments, is understanding for your specific interests, the types of jobs that you'd be qualified for, interested in, which departments have them. There's a lot of positions that all of us share. So an office assistant, an office associate governmental program analyst, that's AGPA, SSA, staff services analyst, IT, the entire series, the accounting series, I'm trying to think of what else. The budget series, I want to say those are all that are pretty much shared across the board. But for this one, for instance, you have this architectural associate. The Department of General Services is one of the only departments that has that position, right? So you may, same thing for us with correction officer, it's just CDCR. So there are niche, what I call classifications that are only given by one department. And so you can focus your efforts with that department. You can start to search to see what that department has open. Another way, when I first started looking for the state, I was living in Folsom. To me, driving downtown Sacramento seemed pretty arduous. So I was looking for different departments that were located in Folsom, which was essentially CDCR and the Prison Industry Authority, as well as Parks and Rec. I was able to find a job by stalking all three on CalCareers. So it's an amazing way to kind of look and see kind of reverse, right? If you have a geographic space you'd like to stay in, if you have a specific department, I always think that it's great to look at the mission for different departments. It's much easier to go to work if you believe in the mission that your department is doing. For me personally, I'm very, very much believe in the rehabilitative process that Department of Corrections does. I know most folks think we're just prisons. Going inside, there's so much more that's happening inside the prison as far as rehabilitative services. San Quentin is actually adopting the Norway model. It's called the California model now. But again, it's very much focused on that rehabilitative services. There are so many different programs and things that are happening, which to me, that it just warms my heart, specifically as a recruiter, even to see some of the folks that we met inside that were incarcerated at the time that are now out getting jobs, leading amazing lives, and kind of full example of recidivism, which is having folks not go back to the prison system and kind of to start and lead better lives. So I can come to work because that's my mission, helping people. I joke and say my job is to help convince people to go to prison, but really it's with that same mantra in mind, right? To understand the difference that every single person that works for CDCR makes. So if you are very passionate about wildlife, if you're very passionate about water usage, passionate about recycling, about electric vehicles, about architecture, whatever that may be, the state does literally have options for all of that. Once you find that department, then you can start to see what career opportunities do these different departments have, and how do I fit within those opportunities. It will show you the final filing date. So these until filled usually means that it's open. So there is no date. The open exam is here as well. What that actually means is that anyone, including state and non-state employees, can take it. You may also see, like for instance, this one, non-promotional. So you don't have to promote into it. Here's a good one. This one is a promotional. So this Associate Chemical Testing Engineer from the Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, only promotional, which means that you have to already work for Caltrans and be promoting into this position to take that exam. So unfortunately, if you don't already work for Caltrans and are not in a position to promote to that position, this exam would not be available for you. So just kind of a tip. It's always, especially if you're not with the state, looking for these open exams. If you are with the state, same for open exams. There are potentially some opportunities to lateral over. So just a slight caveat, if you already work for the state and you meet the minimum qualifications for, let's just say, this chemical testing engineer, but you came in as a different position, if your salary is within 5% up or down of this position and you do meet the MQs, you may request to try to, if there's an open position, to try to lateral, what's called lateral over for that position itself. So that's kind of also a nice way. If you have to come in, let's just say there's no chemical testing engineer job open when you apply and get a job with the state, there could be opportunities later on that open up that allow you to move over within, again, certain parameters, with experience and with salary have to be met, but those opportunities are there moving forward. So that's one of the perks of the state, is that even if you were not able to get the specific job you'd like coming in, there are opportunities to get that job later in life. So I'm going to click on the first one we were looking at, this architectural associate. When you click there, there's actually kind of going to be 2 pages. So it's a little bit of a trick thing. You're going to see this first one, again, final filing date's continuous, meaning you can take this exam at any time. They talk about who can apply, where you can apply. So this is their physical address to send applications. This is really the key, this official exam bulletin. So this whole page that we're looking at here, still great to read, but it's something that the state puts for all of the different exams. All of the very big specifics. There's a classification description here, and then there's also this official bulletin. If you're not familiar with this classification, other than the word architect, right? This class description, or class specification as we call it, it's also going to be attached to every job description. So I'll show you that in the job controls, but you can click here to find out what the minimum qualifications are for this position. As I mentioned earlier with transparency, everything that we have to do, all the minimum qualifications, all of the ways that we're looking to quantify your minimum qualifications are here on this website. So as you see for this architectural assistant series, starting with the architectural assistant, you would move up to architectural associate, and then you have, oh, never mind, the architectural senior was abolished. So we can see right here that now there are 2 in this series. So if you're thinking about it in terms of your job, and in terms of where you can go for your career, this is a great way to see what that series may entail and how many different steps, right? Is there space that you have to move over? Is that something that you could be happy with in your career? I do know there are some managerial architectural, series open. It's under a supervising series. So It talks about the definition of what these folks do, what the entry level is, which is that architectural assistant. What are the factors? So these are great as far as you looking at your skills, variety and complexity of assignments, degree of independent action, skill and decision, degree of direction received, and in the higher classes, your experience level of a lead person or project leaders and design checking authorities. These are all kind of keywords to kind of keep in your brain as skills. Have you done these? Is this something you're familiar with? Is this something that you've done in the past, even if you didn't have architects as your job title? They will give you what this position does. This is actually also usually reflected on a duty statement, which will also be attached to a job control. So every job control has a duty statement attached. That's literally kind of the legal, what we think you are going to do on this job, and you have to sign it when you start. So I'll show you later, but that's all of these little things that they talk about, they'd like you to kind of have experience doing, are great ways for you to communicate your own experience if you've done the same types of things that are communicated here. It goes through the entire series of what you have to have. And now we're down to what's called the MQs, or minimum qualifications. So for that entry level, you have to have education equivalent to a graduation from college with a degree in architecture or architectural engineering and an accredited four-year curriculum from a school of architecture. And you can also be a registered senior. So that is something that's been updated for quite a few of our positions, recognizing that seniors are graduating literally kind of right now, right, in the next month or two. And so we are allowing seniors to take exams so that they can qualify before they graduate. And their transcripts, of course, would have to show that they are a senior. The way the state works is that you would, let's just say you're an architecture student right now, and you are going to graduate at the end of May. We wouldn't be able to hire you officially until your transcript shows that you've completed that education from that four-year degree and done. So you can still be in the process, still take the exam, interview, and kind of be in the process. And it would just be that your actual start date would be waiting for your transcript to reflect that. And that's the same for any position that requires an education. So if you are in school and you're going to be completing things this semester, you can still apply and take the exams. You can still apply for the jobs. Just know that your start date would be dependent on that final transcripts that shows your completion of whatever classes that you need to qualify for the position that you're qualifying for. It is also official transcripts now. So I know that there are, they can send it digitally. So I would check with your schools. Even if your transcript came, I graduated 25 years ago and found out my school has a dashboard that I can sign up for to get my transcripts digitally, official digital transcripts. So you don't have to go get the envelope with the stamps anymore. So I would also look into that if you do need to use education. It's just that they would, unofficial usually counts for some application processes, but it's great if you can get an official and just kind of have that in your back pocket to be able to be sent for qualifying purposes later on. So there's usually two patterns. So we call that inside and outside. So you see either number one pattern or number two. So number two is 2 years of architectural drawing experience, and it has to be in building architecture, and 60 semesters or the equivalent number of quarters. So what they're saying is instead of getting a four-year degree in architecture from an accredited institution, you can have 2 years of working doing building architectural drawing experience and an AA essentially, or 60 credits. So actually it doesn't have to be an AA, it can just be that 60 credits. So those are two ways, right, that you could get in whereby you may not have finished an architecture degree, maybe it was a minor, life gets in the way, you might not have to finish, but you've been working in a firm, you've been doing drafting, what have you. All of this doesn't have to be contiguous either. So if it was 6 months here, 4 months here, what have you, we make sure that the dates when you put them in your application are very clear so that the person that's looking at it can quantify that it adds up to at least the 2 years. So that is at least 24 months of contiguous full-time work. So that is 40 hours a week of work. So understand if you were working part-time, if you were only doing 10 to 20 hours, you would need double that 2 years, right, to get to that 2 years of full-time work. So for MQs, same deal. If you are using experience, working experience versus education, it just has to add up to full-time work. So again, if you're doing part-time work, it doesn't mean that you can't use it. It's just you have to have more time. So instead of the 2 years of full-time work, you need 4 years, right, of a part-time, so on and so forth. However, percentage of your job that you did it. So that's another great thing to kind of bring up is when you are applying for positions. If you are, let's just say you worked in a drafting firm and doing these drawings was a percentage of your job, but not your whole job. Definitely you can put in 45%, right? I worked full time, but it was only 45% of my job. That helps us help you. So we can start to, again, quantify. If you did it for 6 years, that gives you the 2 years that you would need doing that position. A lot of folks don't realize, it's if someone on the back end of our HR is reading it and they can't tell how much of the job it is, or if it seems like it wasn't a large part of what you did, and you don't quantify what it is, then they have to make assumptions, which usually they have to keep it fairly conservative and it may not go in your favor. So the more that you can identify percentages, which I'll show you again on the duty statement, we show which percentage of your job that you're doing certain types of tasks, or at least expected to, then that again helps if we have to do this combination of things, whether it be experience, education, and so on and so forth, in order to get you quantified to take an exam and or for a specific job to be hired. Okay, we are going to go back to the job controls. Oh, sorry, back to this screen. Sorry, so this was that home screen for the exams. I'm going to click here for the official bulletin. So this, if you go to take the exam, is where you'll find all, even more details, all of the things, right? So again, here's the class spec again. So if you missed it on that first page, it's also linked here. Just giving you multiple areas because we are humans, we do upload these. So sometimes the links aren't working in both places. So now you know multiple places to kind of find that class spec link if you didn't see it on the page or it wasn't working for either page. It does definitely happen. What they tell you is who can apply again. So once you've taken the exam, you can't retake it for 12 months. That's very important. If you don't pass, that means you have to wait 12 months before you attempt to take the exam again. So no pressure per se, it's just keeping that in mind just in case you may need to take a moment. If you need to study, if you need to brush up on some things, if it's been a while, I would definitely say, again, it doesn't stop you from applying for a job. It's just, take your time to study or refresh or do whatever you might have to do in order to make sure they're the most prepared when you go to take the exam. The exam itself, which it'll show, and I'll show you later or a little bit down further, it does not ask for anything more than it would have expected you to gain in terms of experience and knowledge, either in that 4 years of college, getting your architecture degree, or in that 2 years of working and the 60 units of college. So all of the things that they're asking would have been something that would be expected for you to have mastered during that time. It's the same with any exam. So if it's a high school degree as a minimum qualification, like our office assistant, everything in that exam is something that the state would have expected you to have learned and mastered in high school. Same if they ask for 15 credits in IT, some you need an accounting degree, some you need a degree period, or again, experience. So it's not egregious. It's not something to trick you or to make it seem, help you to not take this exam. It's, again, if you think about job skills, right? So it's asking it on a high level about presentations or about collaborative group work, things like that. They're going to use those larger words, collaborative group work, cross collaborative communication. Well, if you work at McDonald's and you have to talk to the senior manager about something, that's cross collaborative communication. So it's not always such, a high level thing. It's just understanding what that skill entails. Group work is anything that involves more than one person working on it. Where, how, and what job don't matter. It's, do you know how to work in a group? Do you know how to work with different personalities? Are you aware of how to communicate, how to pull together a project or product, as a group? If that makes sense. Those are the things that the state's kind of trying to look for when they're asking those questions. So thinking along those lines, again, giving yourself some grace, doing presentations, which a lot of folks, right? PowerPoint presentations, any presentations like this, if you do something at your church, if you do something for a volunteer group, if you went to your kid's school, anything that involved you presenting both virtually and in person to anything for any subject, is presentation experience. That is something that the state is looking for. It all counts. It does not have to be paid. It can be volunteer. Anything, again, it's the experience that we're rating you on, because for this specific job, you have to be able to do building architecture, right? So they want you, if you don't know how to draw and look at drawings and to assess them and to complete them, Not going to be super helpful. For other jobs, they may need you to have a public facing job. For my team, we are a public facing recruitment team. If you have a difficult time talking to strangers, it's not the best thing for my team, right? That's kind of the bulk of what we have to do. So that would be that presentation, that communication, that piece is in all of the different analyst minimum qualifications for my team. So think of those things in mind. That's kind of where some of the jobs are going when they're asking certain questions on the exam, as well as in some of the statement of qualifications, which we'll get to in the job control. So back to this tells you how you can apply. You are submitting the same standard 678, which is also the application for the state. So yes, you've seen it. It's the same state application that you've already had to apply for the job. It's just you'll actually be writing the exam in that where the job goes, you're writing the exam when you're submitting it to take an exam. If you are taking an exam online, so this one specifically, you do have to mail in, right? So you can see that you can submit the package here in person, or you can drop it off at their office in West Sac, or you can submit it by mail. So there's a qualifications assessment that's attached to this and the standard 678. So you're filling out that application the same as you would if you were applying for the job for an architectural associate, as well as the qualification assessments that they have attached. You're going to print that out and mail it to this address here. Or you can drop it off, like I said, in person here. There are some, if you're taking this online, that handy CalCareers dashboard that we set up at the beginning, you're just going to put in your CalCareers ID and sometimes your social security number, just so that they know it's you. And then you can take the exam online and the results are instantaneous. So there's kind of two different ways you can do it, whereas your exam, sending it in to get this qualified, is actually three. Mailing it in, having someone send it back to you, you can actually apply, mail that in again, and they may email you back an exam that you can take online, or you can take the exam immediately online. And that's why you'd have to have that CalCareers that we set up in the beginning to do that online and have your results be immediate. They give you a time frame. You cannot do resumes and you cannot fax or email exams. So just understand, if they give you, this is continuous. Some exams do have a cutoff date. The cutoff date for the mail is it has to be postmarked by 5 o'clock that day. So if you're mailing it in, you have to get it to the post office and have it postmarked by 5 o'clock on that final filing day or before, if it is even postmarked. So if you drop it off at 4:59, and let's just say the post office postmarks it for the next day, it's late, and unfortunately you may not be included in that section. So I know for us, we have quite a few exams that are open for 3 months, 2 months, a month, even for you to apply to take the exam. And then we don't give them for another 6 months. So definitely be aware that certain departments, everybody has their own exam schedule depending on the size of their team and which exams they need to give. So you definitely have to take it in, either walk it in. A lot of places are taking walk-ins again during COVID. I know quite a few of the walk-ins were suspended, but a lot of places are. Again, it will be on this bulletin here. Or be sure that you get it mailed in by that postmark by 5 o'clock on that day of. It does give you instructions as to what happens if you do need to have the exam to have reasonable accommodations. Again, you can contact this office. Let's see. Sorry, here's a cutoff date. So March 31st was one of the cutoff dates. Doesn't mean you can't send it in. It's just cut off there. That means that they're going to put everybody together from the last cutoff date to then, and then those are the folks that will be taking the exams, and then they will allow the next kind of group of folks, right? So it goes in a rolling basis. If you do need accommodations, let's see, for this one, it is, you can mark the box on the 678 that you do need to have accommodations, reasonable accommodations made to take the exam, and then someone will contact you at the contact information that you give in your application to provide those accommodations for you. So that is definitely something that the state is more than willing to do. Whatever you need, we can accommodate you taking the exam, and even for your applications as well. So they review the minimum qualifications again, talks about the exam and the components. This is great. This is what they're expecting. Again, that knowledge of these things, the ability to do these things. This is a 2-month list. So as you can see, it's 24 months, which means once you take and pass this, you are eligible for to apply for this position for up to 2 years, which is great. And then for all of our vets out there, thank you for your service. One of the things that the state of California does for veterans preference is that you are always reachable for all of the exams that you state. So I'm honorably discharged, excuse me, veteran or a spouse or partner of an honorably discharged 100% disabled veteran is able to take exams, and no matter what your score, you are always reachable in our rank 1. So that just means that you are always eligible to be considered for interviews and for further motion without being dependent on the test score that you have. So you can use that one time. Once you are hired from a list with veterans preference, if you need to, then that is the one time to use it, because then you'd be a state employee at that time. If you don't need it, you don't have to take it. It's just an additional process. And there is a veterans preference form, which is linked here, that you do have to print out and mail to California CalHR, which is our overarching human resources department. So the Department of Human Resources, or CalHR, along with a copy of the DD-214 for yourself or for your spouse or partner to get that. Once you do have that, again, you'll see that in your CalCareers dashboard. This also has links for preparing for the exam. They have questions. Here's that exam contact information I was looking for. So they have an email or a phone number you can call. There is a relay service if you need to. So all of these things, this is kind of your key for any exam assessments. All of our departments have to follow the same standard, basically template. So all of the information should be here for any and every exam and assessment that any department gives for the state of California. Again, if anything's missing, links aren't working, you don't understand, feel free to contact this email or the phone number here, and the folks that are there are expecting and can hopefully give you the answers that you need, or at least help you to understand, hey, we didn't know that it's not working. Thank you for letting us know. Here's some more clarifications about, whatever the questions are, that you may have for that. So that's kind of the exam process, which is big because that gets you qualified for the job itself. The next one, kind of getting a state job. So you can click on the handshakes, right, for getting a state job. And this gives you kind of the search, assessment, and apply. I went a little bit out of order and did the assessments. I think it's nice to have the assessments done before you apply, but you can definitely search because, as I said, again, you don't have to be on the list. So we are going to go back to that job search. We are going to search, I'm going to do legal secretary. So for all you legal secretaries out there, just my own little post, I know I have 3 or 4 open positions coming. So if you qualify for legal secretary, if you're a paralegal or in that legal area, we will be having some posted very soon, if that are not already posted actually, for CDCR. So just a little bit, but there are 6 here. Yep, there's one of them actually. So they're already posted. There you go. So legal secretary is here. The final filing date is May 26th. This is, again, great to look at. If you're applying online, you have until midnight to apply through CalCareers for this position. If you are mailing in an application, again, you have that 5 o'clock postmark cutoff. So if you click on the actual title here, this is what a job ad looks like. So you'll have the final filing date, the salary, this is the department, the different types of application methods. So drop off, by mail, electronic, through this dashboard. You can apply now when you sign in. So we'll look at that. You can save the job again when you are signed in. So let's just say you're kind of working, looking through different types of jobs. You don't necessarily have time to apply or tweak your templates right now. Then you can click save and it'll save to templates or save to the different jobs in your CalCareers account. You just have to make sure you are signed in first, and you can save it, or you can print a copy and take it with you if you happen to be at a library or a different space that's not your own and you want to come back to it at a later time. The job description is huge. Either sometimes it is the duty statement. For this one, I know I worked with them so that they could really talk about the different types of folks that they're looking for, the different types of knowledge that they're looking for. Again, as I mentioned, the duty statement is here. It's always going to be linked. So a beautiful thing, if you click on the duty statement, it is a, what do you call it, where it'll come. So you may have to your cookies. So it'll come on the bottom and you may have to open it. So just know that you have to change your cookies in order to look at it. This gives the position number, it gives the office, the division, where the job is. So that's some great sneaky way to find out where the job is, because CDCR is huge, right? This is on Old Placerville Road. So it's not at our downtown office, which means what? Free parking. Key. For those of you that know, parking downtown is not cheap, nor is it easy. So these are little things that you can even find out on your own if they don't have it listed as a perk for the position. Just by looking at the duty statement. The duty statement, I say we tell it ourselves almost, right, with the duty statements. So it's a great way, again, for you, the applicant, to know what to put. So our mission is here, our commitment for diversity, and we as a department are committed, as are most departments with the state. What the division does, so that Office of Legal Affairs, just a general statement about the job. But again, as I mentioned, here are those percentages, right? 35% of your time will be spent doing this, 25 doing this, and so on and so forth, to add up to 100%. Consequences of error, I wouldn't look too deep. I mean, it kind of is what it is. It's, if you don't do your job correctly, it's not going to be great, right? That's on any professional position anywhere. So just with that understanding. And then we do have to say special requirements with the no hostage situation. This job at Old Placerville is not inside of an institution, but you may go into institutions. I think it's great to take tours. Again, it's just, we have to be very transparent, once again, with the different types of things that CDCR does. So there are no bargainings, there's no hostage, so on and so forth. That's with all CDCR positions, all 65,000 of us. This is key. So all of these different ways: create, organize, and maintain case files in accordance with Office of Legal, file management system. If you created, organized, and maintain case files of any kind, when you are writing your experience, you can write, I created, organized, and maintain case files in accordance with whatever legal authority you worked with. This is you basically showing them that you know how to. They also example hard copy case, the OLA electric filing system, which is probably something that's very similar to something just like ProLaw here, right? Which is a very well-known shared network filers. So you are showing already that the experience that you have is the same as what they're asking for in this duty statement. Same thing, right? So let's just say you were not a paralegal, you may qualify to be a paralegal. I was a contracts manager, right? So we did a lot of paralegal type work. Same thing, I was doing case files, I was doing project management. I'm just looking at, servicing legal documents, coordinating legal services, transcription requests. These are all job skills, all things that you may have done, even if you didn't have that title. So this is where, when you're looking at what you've done in the past, don't necessarily limit yourself based on your job title. Look at the different types of skills that you've done on the job, and do they relate to what's being communicated here in the duty statement? If more than 50 to 60% do, go for it. And as long as you have the time and you've looked at that minimum qualifications. So I'm going to go back to close this. Oops, sorry. And I close this. I don't want to close the whole thing. Sorry. My sharing file. And I did close the whole thing. Sorry. Gonna go back. I apologize.
Can I ask a question about the exams?
Sure.
Okay, so I was told that once you take the exams, there's you mentioned the rankings, right? So what if you don't rank in like the top 3? Will you still have like a chance of being called to an interview? Okay.
So it depends. There are some exams that are only 3 ranks. So it's kind of like a pass fail, right? That you would do for school. So you can only get ranks 1, 2, or 3, or you don't pass. The ones that are more, I'd say the ranking is always, it's fluid. So for instance, as people are getting hired, as I mentioned, and they pull them off those lists, then that opens space right at the top. And then when we are looking at different applicants, we're actually sending those contact letters out, contacting folks. If folks don't respond, then we can definitely potentially, depending on the size of the list. So I saw someone in the chat that was talking about SSA and AGPA. Definitely super competitive. There's about 10,000 to 15,000 people on that list. Little hard to clear ranks. What I was kind of getting at is if you have some of those niche classifications, much smaller lists, there's certain lists that have 20 people on them. There's certain lists that maybe have 100 people on them. Different counties is huge. So the difference between the SSA list for Placer County versus Sacramento County is about 3,000 or 4,000 people. Same with El Dorado County, same with Yolo County, same with San Joaquin. Your score may also make you reachable, which means that you're in the top 3 ranks in a different county, just not maybe in Sacramento County. So that's key to kind of looking at, whereby, okay, let's just say you weren't reachable for position in Sacramento County, but it does work for San Joaquin. So you could definitely apply for one of our positions in San Joaquin or one of the other state departments in a different county that you would be reachable in. Or if they can clear it, then they could still definitely invite you to interview. The thing to understand is even if you are reachable, that doesn't guarantee you an interview. It just allows you to be interviewed. So that's, I think, where a lot of folks may sometimes get confused thinking, hey, I got 95%, I should get an interview, no problem. For instance, with that SSA, with that AGPA, there's 10,000 other people that are also in that same area. So understanding different, for certain types of positions, there may be lots and lots and lots of applicants. So it is really up to that hiring manager, specifically for those very general classifications. If they're, looking for very specific experience. So it may be an AGPA, for instance, a governmental program analyst, but they need contracts experience. So you may be a great, person, but if you don't have that contracts experience that they're looking for, that might be why they might screen you out versus other folks that do have a specific experience. So it's a combination of scores and reachability as well as actual experience for the job that they're looking for. So I would not count yourself out for sure.
I have another question if you don't mind. So
Sure.
For the SSA exam, I know that there's a book, it's like green and it says SSA, says Staff Service Analyst. I don't remember who the publisher is. Would you recommend like getting that book and practicing?
So the exam just changed, actually.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
changed people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd say there's a lot of forums online because it changed and it's not and so the way that it changed for everyone, and this is huge actually for all of you for SSA, prior to April, the SSA, which is a staff services analyst, you had to have a 4-year college degree if you didn't already work for the state. And if you did already work for the state, you could take what's called an SSA transfer exam. So you could come in, work for the state for a year as like an office technician, take the transfer exam because some folks do have the experience and just not the degree, and still get on that list. What it does now is it kind of combines the two. So you can have experience as well as education, any combination of the two, and take the exam online. So the factors that are in the exam, I haven't actually taken it for funsies yet, so I'm not specifically sure, but from what I've heard is it's, again, like I said before, it's a combination of what you would have learned on the job experience as well as education. So there shouldn't be anything that's kind of too egregious in terms of being an entry-level analyst, because that's what it's testing for. That would be kind of, if you've done office type work, if you've done analysis, data analysis, collections, presentations, that kind of thing, everything that's listed in the exam bulletin. It's totally your choice if you'd like to get a study book or kind of look for certain things, but they were specifically trying to make it broad enough so that folks that were, again, if you have 4 years, 6 years, 10 years of work experience and no education, or as I call it, you can kind of fast track like you would at Disneyland, right? If you have that 4-year degree or any vestiges of a degree. So it's any type of education. You don't need a degree at all. You could just have credits. So if you have, I know folks that have 2 AAs, their credits can count up. So it's a great combo thing now. It allows a lot of folks to qualify to take the exam and to potentially get on that list, but then with the understanding that the list is pretty large. So the competition is still there, but there could be, again, those specifics for SSA, even where they want that contract, they want legal, they want recruitment, they, something else that you may have specific experience in. So I'd say it's completely up to you if you'd like to get the study guides. I think there is one that was already linked, and I didn't look at the new bulletin, but there used to be a study guide that was linked to the old bulletin that was fairly good. And then, like I said, there's forums online where folks kind of share their experience taking it. And that's an online exam, so you can take that in the comfort of your own home. So you'd sign into your CalCareers account and you can take that on the spot and you'll get your score on the spot as well.
And then you mentioned before that when you take a test, it lasts for a duration of a year, right? So what if you didn't get a score that you liked or you were satisfied with? Do you have to wait a whole year? Like, what if you passed, but then you didn't get a score that you were satisfied with?
And that's dependent on each exam is different. So some exams it's 6 months, they make you wait to retake. Some exams they make you wait the entire year. Like for instance, in that architectural we looked at, that's a 2-year list. So it would be up to them for how long you have to wait to retake. But it would be in that exam bulletin, they would tell you how long the retake period is as well. And that is, unfortunately, it's not the same across the board.
Got it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Actually, because I just realized we're at time. So for Sarah, it's up to you. I know you have another presentation after me. I will put my general information in the chat and then we'll be around tomorrow as well virtually to answer questions for CDCR. And there's all the other state recruiters are amazing. We are all here to answer questions and kind of, we all have a passion for helping folks find jobs and kind of connecting the dots. So thank you all for coming, and then hope to see you all again tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Monique. Such great information. I second, your presentation is always so informative and helpful, and I just appreciate you. So thank you so much for all of that. If you'll hang for a few minutes in the chat, there might be a few more questions. This next session